Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Friday morning at the Fun House because it is morning here, right, Martin? Bright,
Yeah,
cheery,
it's
sunny
morning
morning.
here too. We're in the same time zone, so it's nice. Yeah, it's summer and all that, and busy day. Dentist, pick up my taxes, drop off some book sales, all that stuff. But yeah, it's definitely summer has absolutely arrived here in Toronto for sure.
Yeah, it's been very warm the last couple of days. I think we're gonna get a little bit of a cool down here in the Hudson Valley next week, but yeah, we hit almost 90 a couple days ago. It was in the 80s yesterday. I think it's gonna be in the 80s today. Got to take Dad to go get some little medical thing done today, and then I gotta deal with my yard and get ready for the long weekend. And I'm on vacation next week, so I gotta mow and weed whack and get the smoker grill clean because I'm gonna make a pulled
Nice.
pork for the first time tomorrow on the new grill. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, so and I'm
Yeah,
excited today to talk about Van Halen, Sammy and Dave in the 80s, right? That's what this is all about.
absolutely. Yep.
Martin, do you feel a little refreshed this week for this episode? Because I feel like last week we were kind of shitting on a lot of albums. I don't know if I'm going to really shit on anything today. I don't know. I
I
think,
don't know. I'm no. I would have to disagree with that.
yeah,
I think I am going to be denigrating many of these records. I don't
yeah,
know.
okay.
I think I still have a lot of complaining to do, but that's in the
Well,
DNA
yeah,
of a serious
a little bit.
Van Halen fan, anyways. So
Yeah, all right. So let me rephrase that. I don't feel as down on these albums on this
yeah,
group as I did last week's.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some, there's some crap here too, but I don't think it's as bad. I think to me, these albums are a little more solid than some of the ones we talked about last week, but
Yeah.
we'll see as we go, right? So.
Yeah,
So just
absolutely.
so everybody knows, what we're doing is we're taking all the 80s Van Halen albums, all the 80s solo albums from Sammy, and the two full-length solo albums from Dave. We're not including the EP here. And also we're throwing in Hagar, Sean, Aronson, and Shreve, otherwise known as HSAS. So we basically have everything that everybody worked on throughout the 80s, throwing them all in a pile, ranking them as we like them. We got 14 albums, and what do you think, Martin? You want to go three, four at a time, whatever the numbers work out to
Well,
be?
14. So you want to go two at a time? Go
Okay, that's
around
fine. We can do that.
seven
Yeah.
times. All right. Okay. All right. So let's kick off with here's my album flat of I Never Said Goodbye, or the Peter Gabriel self-titled, or whatever you want to call it, right? The weird one without a title kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we've got our promo for Give to Live off it on the back. I don't know. I mean, even though Eddie's on this, I'm feeling like there's not a lot of personality to this record. This was the contractual obligation. We got one more album for Sammy. Did pretty good. I think it was gold or something like that. But we got David Lauser on there, Jesse Harms, but I'm still finding it. There's some frumpy dumpy four on the floor drumming on this. There's some braying keyboards. I find the melodies kind of maudlin. Yeah, reminded me a little bit of Helix, reminded me a little bit of early days hair metal, trying to get the formula right, sort of thing. So I'm feeling like I'm feeling like Sammy needs the fire of the Van Halen guys to turn in kind of really good records, I would say. But yeah, there's some, Eagles Fly was big on here with kind of the military beat thing going on in it. That turned out to be a big song. Give to Live is like your standard Van Halen sort of maudlin ballad kind of thing. There's some slide guitar, there's some Stonesy stuff, but generally speaking, it sounds very corporate, very hair metal, and slightly lacking focus or lacking personality. So that's my first one. Second one is I'm going with VOA. There's my cool promo of that. And then on the back, this is just radio of the one song. It's a little more up tempo. Speaking of tempo, Ted Templeman, I don't think does a great production job on this. This one went platinum. It had I Can't Drive 55. That was an infectious, fun song, cool
Oh,
video, and all that. Swept Away, sort of smeary hard rock. Rock is in my blood. Brutal production coming through on here. Again, I don't understand what Ted Templeman's taste in production seems to have waned by this point. Poppy Brian Adams kind of stuff on here, going back to the old days with something like Two Sides of Love, Dick in the Dirt, keys, female backing vocals, and just kind of, again, pedestrian kind of hair metal thing. VOA is fast, but he's also got some keyboards and stuff in there. So he's really still going for that Heartland sort of arrangement thing going on. And Don't Make Me Wait, poppy, laid back, burning down the city, big thumping, slow loping keyboard rock. So not a massive fan of VOA either. So that's my first two.
All right. You know, it's funny. We've been hearing a lot from you over the last couple of weeks about this whole four on the floor thing that you really don't like. I think maybe we should do an episode just like Dream Theaters type stuff so we can get it kind of away from that a little bit. So you don't have to worry about that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're not going to see any there, but
no, not at all.
Or there might be a show about really super uninspired rhythm sections. You know, there's a lot of albums that are, you know, the collaboration between the bassist, the drummer, and the producer, and possibly the attitude of the rest of the band to not giving a damn about, you know, how good the bottom end is or how good the rhythm section is. You know, we can think of Ted Nugent immediately comes to mind for some of those
you know, albums. When you're listening to an album that there's no bottom end, it sticks out like a sore thumb, right? It's like you got to have that. But there are.
But I just mean dullness too, just like straightforward, rigid, boring, no fills, that kind of thing.
Nothing.
Right? Yeah, might be an interesting show. Yeah.
All right, my number 14. You know, the bottom half of my list could switch around and whatnot. I think these are all have some decent stuff, some mediocre stuff. I'm going to go with Three Lock Box, which I mean,
that to hold up too.
I love the title track. I've always dug the title track. I think it's a really good hard rocker. I think Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy is a really catchy kind of like pop rock, pop metal song. Rise of the Animals, decent. I Don't Need Love is really cranking hard rock. I just find the rest of the album pretty bland and not all that memorable, and just lacking in a little balls of some of the other stuff. But it's not terrible by any means. I know a lot of people dig this album, so and I get it. And I think it's one of those albums that the strength of a couple of songs really kind of make it a little bit better than it actually otherwise might be. But I find there's just some mediocre stuff on there and some really good tracks on there, but not terrible by any means. That's my number 14. Number 13, I'm going to go with Skyscraper from David Lee Roth. Right. So I will admit, because you're going to see it's coming up much higher on my list. I am a pretty big fan of the first full length from Dave and the Boys. And I remember when Skyscraper came out, I was kind of like, this is kind of like missing that go for the throat attitude of the first album. It's just very squeaky clean. Production is very safe, and I'm just finding there's not a lot of balls on here. In saying that, Knucklebones is really catchy. I think Vi's guitar work is very tasty, maybe almost too perfect and too squeaky clean. Just Like Paradise is a great single, a great song. It's just a really memorable slice of pop metal. I really like that a lot. Love the chorus. The bottom line's got some musical fireworks going on. I kind of wanted more of that from this album. I think Billy Sheehan's kind of invisible on this album, to be honest with you. It sounds very Van Halen-ish. Hot Dog and a Shake. It's fun. Perfect Timing isn't bad. I find the rest of it just kind of like, I don't know, it just doesn't do a hell of a lot for me. And even though Vi is like sprinkling his little pixie dust all over the album, it's like there's just this kind of like sheen to the whole album that just never really sat well with me. So that's my number 13.
All right, cool. Okay, so my number 12 is I'm gonna go with Eat 'Em and Smile. This went platinum. Yeah, just to clarify, VOA I think is platinum, went platinum, and I never said goodbye, maybe didn't certify at all, but this went platinum as well. You almost think it should have been bigger, right?
I'm surprised
it was all over radio, right? There was a lot of hits off it and stuff. But I was surprised I had it this low on the list. I'm just finding this to be a little bit fragmented. It's got a lot of the novelty things that we got on Crazy from the Heat. I don't think Yankee Rose is all that interesting on here. Tobacco Road, I never want to hear a cover of Tobacco Road. And I find the whole idea of just trying to make a supercharged, cocainated, on steroids version of Van Halen a little bit cynical and kind of weird that he would do that. And it's got a little bit of that thing that I've been talking about lately with you know, I complain with Van Halen about this as well. Is when they do these faster songs, they just kind of go up into the stratosphere and they don't sound heavy, they just sound panicked and frantic kind of thing. So that's your Elephant Gun and Shy Boy coming from the old Talus album, right? Bump and Grind's okay on here. Going Crazy, I'd probably like that even more than Just Like Paradise, but you know, for in that sort of song. Ladies Night in Buffalo's okay too. But yeah, not crazy about there's Ted Templeman again, not crazy about his production on it. It's kind of a little bit thin. So yeah, just yeah, I'm surprised I had this low. And then I'm gonna go with Skyscraper. The only reason I have this a little bit higher is as we were talking with Hack yesterday, a little bit about Bent Out of Shape versus those previous two albums. I think this one has an obscure and definable personality to it. It's just weird. It's commendable in that it's actually less heavy than Eat 'Em and Smile. It's thinner and weirder and more atmospheric. It does have my favorite David Lee Roth song of all time in Hina. I always compared that to Little Guitars, same kind of song. Skyscraper's kind of cool too, and that really is like a metaphor for the whole album. Just this strange, airy, bright drums, Steve Vai, high and screechy and dog whistly, not a lot of bass. The bass is sort of exacting, and just atmospheric. The sound isn't really all that filled in. Knucklebones, as you say, is more of a traditional David Lee Roth song. I'm not crazy about Just Like Paradise. But bottom line, two fools a minute, it's him goofing around again, right? Stand Up, I'm not crazy about that kind of a thumpy sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I just like the fact that it seems a little more artistic than the first one, but still not that great. And it also went platinum. I saw him on that tour too. That was fond memories of when Toronto had this big venue called Kingswood, way north of the city. It was an outdoor venue in a massive amusement park. And all the hair metal bands were there, sort of thing. So when I just first moved to Toronto, I saw a bunch of these cool triple bills of all these guys: Skinnerd, Cinderella, Sea Hags, Slaughter, all these guys up there. Kim Mitchell and this David Lee Roth, I think, was a triple bill with somebody too. So
yeah, I never got to see them live. I would have liked to. I mean, I love the lineup. You know, it's incredible players here.
All right, so that's my next two.
All right, so my number 12 is going to be Sammy Hagar. I Never Say Goodbye. Yeah. I mean, When the Hammer Falls, pretty riffy and heavy. I don't mind that. Hands and Knees is kind of moody. It rocks. Give to Live, I think, is a really good, just hooky pop metal song. Boys Night Out is kind of raunchy. Privacy's got lots of cool guitar work on it. Back Into You is kind of catchy. I mean, a couple of the tracks aren't all that great, but overall, I think it's pretty good. It's pretty solid for a latter period release from him. So I don't mind it too much. So that's my number 12. My number 11, man, if we were doing this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this might have been at the bottom, but I think I hated this at the time. OUA 1-2. I absolutely despised this album when it came out.
Right.
I was a big fan of 5150. You know, and that's pretty poppy album too. But man, I don't know if you remember, the hits off this album were played to death on the radio, played to death on MTV. You could not escape. I mean, Finish What You Started and Feel So Good. I was just kind of like, oh my God, I just can't. And When It's Love, I'm like, oh, just can't take it anymore. Looking back on it though, I'm still not crazy about the hits, but I really like everything else. I think Mine Oh Mine is great. AFU Naturally Wired is killer. Cabo Wabo is nice and catchy. It rocks. Source of Infection sounds like an old school David Van Halen song. Love it. Black and Blue is really good. So for me, you take the hits out of here, and I think it's a dynamite album. I mean, they were hits for a reason. They're good songs, don't get me wrong, but I just never need to hear them again. And I don't mind the production too much on this album. So yeah, that's my number 11. It would have been at the bottom of the barrel a decade ago. Now it's like I can see why people love it so much. It sold like 1 million copies, like millions of copies, right? What did this do? 5, 6, 7 times platinum?
4 times platinum.
4, yeah. I mean, just
Yep.
crazy. You could not escape it. This was. I remember this came out in the summer, and it was like all over everywhere, no matter where. Just kind of like 5150 was too, because that was like a
Yep.
summer album as well. They did a
Yep.
really good job, I think, back then of those two albums of putting them out at the right time. And man,
Yeah, good
you
point.
could not escape Van Halen in the warmer months. You just couldn't
Yeah.
do it. So there, that's my 12 and 11.
All right. Next, I'm going with number 9 is Standing Hampton from 1982, which went gold. And there's a promo of that produced by Keith Olsen. And I quite like the production on this. Speaking with Bill Church about this album, he said Keith Olsen was just like insanely ridiculously rich off of Fleetwood Mac money. He was building a massive mansion. He said there were construction workers everywhere, but Bill got to stay at his house while making this album. And he said it was just him, construction workers everywhere, his own entire floor with his own private tennis court. Up on the upper level in Keith Olsen's house. Sadly, he's no longer with us. I got to interview Keith years ago. He's a pretty funny guy. But I like the production on this because this is old school. This is an old school proto hair metal, post punk rock, early days Heartland, Bryan Adams, Night Ranger. Sammy basically defines this kind of music, and I quite buy into it. Things like Can't Get Loose with that, very poppy, catchy title. It's synthy. It's got the female backing vocals in there, which are done right because they work for this kind of music. Sweet Hitchhiker's got a little more 4 on the floor, but it is metal, and the 4 on the floor lifts up, and so the chorus takes off, kind of thing. Because that's the other thing about 4 on the floor. It's designed sometimes to like hold back the payoff, right? Kind of thing. It's to hold things down until, okay, we're going to do something else, kind of thing. But Surrender's cool in here. Baby It's You, old school 70s Sammy off of that one. So I like the charm and the personality of Sammy during these years, kind of thing. Next, I'm going with HSAS, Hagar, Sean Aronson, Shreve, Through the Fire. Interesting project. You've got your Neil Sean up there in the corner. Sammy, great shot of Sammy. Kenny Aronson from Derringer and Dust, right? I think it's Dust, right? And Michael Shreve. So this is like Intensities, of course. It's a one-off album that is done live, but it's all new originals, and it's quite heavy, and it's pretty explosive sounding. The performances are good on it. Top of the Rock, good heavy party metal. Missing You, cruising kind of tune. Animation is the stop-start one with the repeating echoey stuff, kind of little artsy on that. Valley of the Kings is their big slow Kashmir type tune on here, and it's pretty cool. Giza's just kind of a throwaway thing. Whiter Shade of Pale, they had a minor hit with that. I never need to hear anybody covering that ever again. But as we get into it, yeah, Hot and Dirty is a little bit like sort of the frumpy barroom helix kind of sound of some of the things on VOA, and I Never Said Goodbye. He Will Understand is a ballad that picks up and's got that really sort of triumphant, inspiring part to it. And then My Hometown is the heaviest thing on it. That's actually a really cool tune. So yeah, I heard from Bill again when I was working with him, ghosting his autobiography. He had a lot of interesting things to say about this because he's not on it, right? And there was a lot of jibes at Sammy's, everybody saying, it's never going to work and all this stuff. So one memorable thing he told me is that the only guy that ever made any money out of it was Kenny Aronson, who demanded 35 grand flat fee for the thing, and everybody else didn't make any money on it, kind of thing. So he did okay on this thing, apparently. I think that's how the story goes. So yeah, I can't remember quite the story, but I think they did 2 or 3 or 4 shows, and that's it, kind of thing.
Yeah, they had the one that they showed on MTV. I don't remember where that was from, somewhere in California, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, actually, I'm reading the back here. This album was recorded live by the Westwood One Mobile Facility, November 9th to 21st. I don't think it wasn't all those dates in there, I'm pretty sure. Additional overdubs at Fantasy Studios. Oh, so they're admitting they played with it a little bit as well. So yeah, pretty cool album.
Yeah, I think so. More about that a little later. Yeah. All right, my number 10, I'm going to go with Sammy Hagar, VOA.
Right.
I mean, I Can't Drive 55 is great. Swept Away is great. Rock is in My Blood is great. Two Sides of Love I really like a lot. Dick in the Dirt's kind of this cool grinding track. Title track is good. I think it's a very solid guitar heavy album for him, which I really like. Although, I gotta agree with you on the production. Man, I don't like the way Sammy's vocals are produced at all on this album. He sounds like he's singing out of a tunnel, and it's just very distracting. But I actually like the songs on here a lot, so I think it's a pretty solid record for him. That's my number 10. My number 9, I'm gonna go with Diver Down. I have I have been shitting on this album for decades, and it's hard for me to take that stuff back because I still feel very strongly that A, the album is really short. B, there's way too many covers on here that I really don't give a shit about. That being said, Hang 'em High and Secrets are killer songs. Little Guitars is amazing. The Full Bug is just raucous and heavy. Pretty Woman is a good cover, but man, I just don't care about the rest of the album at all. It's like, I do I really want to hear another version of Where Have All the Good Times Gone? No, I don't. Dancing in the Street, I don't care about. But man, I think the original stuff that's on here is really good. I just wish there was more of it because I think you take the covers and the little interludes and things out of here, which are cool. And do a couple other original songs, and all of a sudden this is like mandatory Van Halen. As it is, not really. So that's my next two.
Cool. All right. My next one. So we're up to number 10 of 14. Is that no? Hang on.
Eight
Oh
actually.
yeah. My numbering's. I number from the top, and then I usually screw up somewhere, and I leave one out when we do 30, and I got to recount and renumber, and I'm just crossing them all out instead of reprinting it. Oh, man. Okay, so my number 8 is Danger Zone. I feel like given the album cover and the redness, to me, this is this I pair this all the time with Street Machine. It's like they're so together in my mind because I think they're similar sorts of albums. Produced by Jeff Workman and Sammy Hagar, and this has a really tight, dry production and performance quality, but it adds personality to it in some way. It's kind of interesting. And you really hear it on 20th Century Man. You also really hear Sammy's thing that he does that I always, once I've heard it, I notice it all the time, but I call it the Sammy Hagar hanging chords syndrome, right? Where when he's singing, he's just, and then when he stops singing, you hear the riff, and then he's back to it, So you get this really simple part underneath when he's actually doing his lyrics, and then you get a little bit of a riff. Iceman, slow, heavy blues on here, not crazy about that. Bad Reputation's pretty cool. Good 80s melodic rock again. He's basically a lover boy, Bryan Adams type guy, but with a little more heaviness, a little more edge. Run for Your Life is this dark sort of desperado blues ballad kind of thing on here. Lover Money, totally love Lover Money. Opening track, good heavy one. Mommy Says Daddy Says is completely memorable as well. You've got, the slight conceptual thing with In the Night entering the danger zone, and then the danger zone on here as well. Heartbeat, that is written by Betsy and Sammy's. We all know the story, like the sad breakup of Betsy and Sammy eventually kind of thing. But yeah, to me, this is just a good, solid 80s style, pre kind of awareness commercial. He's still kind of not making any money with the records, although he's doing pretty good with the live situation. But yeah, good solid follow up to Street Machine on that. Next, I'm going with I forgot to show this. I know I've shown this before, but I think it's really funny. The Best of David Lee Roth for Guitar, my super tab book. Look at that. There we go. There's all the hits, right?
There you go. They're all there.
Funny, eh? Who would have thought you had ever seen Hot Dog and a Shake at the top of a list of David Lee Roth songs in a book, right?
Most people I don't know that song. What is that? Must be a good
one. Next, I'm going with OU812. Again, same sort of deal. This is your basic. I agree with everything you're saying on it. I haven't really come around on the hits on this song. Where are our songs here? So yeah, I think All Mine is close to the very best song Sammy ever did, or at least top 5 with the band. I really like it a lot. I do love the production of this album. I think the guitars are molten on it. It's got a really nice balance of brown sound. It's a little more conservative. than 5150. It's got some heavy songs on it. AFU, Black and Blue are heavy. Cabo's heavy enough too. But yeah, feels so good. And what was the one we were talking? Yeah, When It's Love. And Finish What You Started. Yeah, all of those I still never came around to. The lyrics are really sort of asinine and juvenile on it as well. And you get this thing on the inner, all their weird graphics, right? Every picture, they like their out of focus pictures too, right?
Yeah,
They're
they
not
do.
great pictures. They like their black and white, and yeah, everything's black and white all the time, right? But you do get embossing up here, right? This is embossed, which is kind of cool. So yeah, it's okay. I'm not crazy about it. But yeah, there is a lot of, if you want a positive reason to go back and listen to it, I mean, you could just listen to it and say, okay, all I'm going to concentrate on is all the amazing Eddie guitar all over this record. There's
Yeah,
lots
there's a
of
lot of
great
that.
Eddie
Yeah.
as well. So there you go. That is my 8 and 7.
Cool. My number 8 is Sammy Hagar, Danger Zone. Pretty high energy album. I like this album. You mentioned Love or Money. Man, that sounds like classic Montrose, or maybe like the first first or second Moxie album.
Yeah.
Really good rocker. Love that a lot. I mean, 20th Century Man is kind of like real hook laden boogie. Love that. Miles from Boredom is heavy. Night Enter the Danger Zone. In the Night Enter the Danger Zone. Real good, fast paced song there. I love that. I like the guitar riffing all over this album. I think it's very well done. Run for Your Life is killer. I mean, maybe you can make the argument that the album is a little front loaded. I think maybe the second half of it falls off a little bit, but otherwise, I think this is a really strong album and one of his strongest from the solo catalog. So that's my number 8. Yeah, he's looking the part, right, all over that.
Yep.
Looking like the red rocker that he is, right? Number 7, I'm going to go with Standing Hampton. Yeah, I think this is where kind of everything kind of fell into place for him in his solo catalog. I mean, I'll Fall in Love Again. Great commercial hard rock song. So good. There's always one way to rock is, I mean, that kicks all sorts of ass. To me, you think of Sammy Hagar solo, that's the song that comes to my mind always. Great guitar tones on this album too. I really like the production here. Baby's on Fire is memorable. Can't Get Loose maybe has a little too many synths, but everybody was using them around in the same way around this time. I love Heavy Metal. Great track, just good stomping anthem. Surrender is cool. It's a little different. Inside Looking In is good. Sweet Hitchhiker is nice and raunchy and rocking. Do we need a cover of Piece of My Heart? That's kind of worthless, but other than a couple filler tracks, I think what's good on here is really, really good. So yeah, 2 Sammy albums for 8 and 7.
Nice. Yeah, I'll Fall in Love Again is also 4 on the floor kind of thing. And Foreigner does a lot of that too. So
Yeah.
it's
On some, like you said, on some songs it works really well. So
yeah. Okay, so my next one is 3 Lock Box. Again, same. I absolutely always group this album, pair this album with Standing Hampton. Platinum album, 1982, pretty cool. Remote Loves is really kind of quirky and new wavy. And it finds him kind of doing these new things and going for kind of modern radio, which is kind of commendable. Remember the Heroes is the big one with Mike Reno from Loverboy on there. They're doing duets. I actually just did a History in 5 Songs audio podcast called Heavy Metal Duets. I didn't mention that one, but in the Facebook, someone brought that up. So that was really cool. Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy is excellent, cool, poppy song, just like I'll Fall in Love Again. In the Room, Doomy, pop metal. Rise of the Animal, Halftime Again. We get those pulsing synths in there, but that's got the loping almost. It's almost like the Rosanna beat from Toto on that one, I guess. Growing Up's kind of cool. Hand Claps in there. Never Give Up's very John Mellencamp. I Don't Need Love is the fastest one on here. And this one, man, I definitely, this fits so much. This idea of the incredibly polite and staid drumming for a heavy metal song, right? It is just, it sounds like he's in a matchbox, right? And there's this heavy metal riff going on, but just the whole arrangement and production, you could just hear their brain circuits thinking, I've written a heavy metal song here. Let's do everything we can to make this not sound heavy. Right?
Yeah, right.
Let's take it back. We don't want to, I wrote a heavy metal song. Let's not play a heavy metal song. And that's really what it sounds like. So yeah, that's kind of a theme in a lot of the Sammy Hagar catalog. So That is my number 6. My number 5 is Diver Down. And yeah, everything you said, bang on. Although funny, it's like I think we like some different songs on here. I don't like shuffles, right? So I'm not crazy about the full bug. But Little Guitars is one of my favorite Van Halen
Yeah,
songs of all
great
time.
song.
Love it to death. Hang 'em High, I'm like kind of in the middle on. It is a big heavy rocker, but it is fast. The vocal is kind of like atonal and spoken. It sounds very casual. But I think I'm semi on board with "Oh Pretty Woman" and "Dancing in the Street." I think what the first one is just very Van Halen-esque. The second one is experimental, but "Where Have All the Good Times Gone" is kind of dull. It's they don't really do much with it. It just sounds like a sound check kind of thing, which bothers me. Yeah, and it's got the other little parts as well. The interlude things, and then it's got the comedic things like Big Bad Bill and Happy Trails. It is short. I'm definitely I get caught up in the enthusiasm for it and Van Halen and how huge they were and how amazing that looks, like just world beating band sort of thing. And even the album cover is just kind of, how dare they? But it's neat, right? It's iconic now, right? So that's why I've got it fairly high at number 5. That is my 6 and 5.
That's like one of those Van Halen albums that I really want to like more than I do. I've always thought
Yeah.
that. And it's just like no matter how many years go by and I keep thinking, all right, let me give this one another fair shake. And I still come up with the same opinions on it. It's just like
Yeah.
there's some great shit on there, and then there's lots of filler on there. And it's just yeah, you look at the album cover, the back of the cover, the world beaters, right? But it's
Yeah.
just to me, it just doesn't measure up to some of the other classics from that era from them. It
Yeah.
just doesn't. All right, number 6. I'm gonna go with 5150. Man, I listened to this a ton back in the day, and I think it still holds up really, really well. And I think the hits on, as opposed to OUA 1 2, I think the hits on here are really good. Good enough. I love Why Can't This Be Love is a terrific song. What a great summertime anthem. Get Up is a good heavy song. Dreams is so memorable. Really good. Summer Nights is a good fun anthem. Best of Both Worlds, catchy as all hell. Love Walks In. It's a great ballad from them. I mean, I think everything just worked on this album. Title track is great. Inside is great. There's really not a bad song on here. I think I burned myself out on this album for a while. So like throughout like most of the 90s, I really didn't listen to this at all. But in more recent years revisiting it, it's just like it brings back a lot of good memories from a good happy time, when this first came out. And I was 2 years into college and just having a great time with life. And this was a sound, even though most of what I was listening to at the time was a lot heavier than this. I love this album. Saw him on this tour and just great stuff. It's just great memories, great songs, great production. I really dig this a lot. So yeah. That's my number 6. My number 5 is Eat 'Em and Smile. I love this album, Martin. And again, maybe part of me, the reason why I love this album so much is Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan, because I think they go to town on this record. They were given a lot of space to do a lot of stuff. And yeah, it's kind of like a patchwork album somewhat, but I don't care. I love Yankee Rose. I think Shy Boys. I love the Talus version, the original version. I like this version. I like I'm Easy. Maybe some of these songs are a little too short, but Ladies Night in Buffalo, I think is really cool, kind of groovy type of song. Going Crazy is fun. Yeah, do we need another Tobacco Road? No, but in the hands of these guys, it still rules. Elephant Gun is great. Big Trouble Bump and Grind is a terrific, terrific heavy one. It's just not long enough. And That's Life I could probably do without. But the rest of it, I just think the performances are spectacular on here. This has always been one of my favorite albums featuring Steve Vai, and I think he just smokes on here. And Billy Sheehan is all over this as well. The drumming is great on here as well. So yeah, I rank this pretty high. I enjoy this a lot. So that's my number 5.
Yeah, it's true. And as I often quote, my good buddy and smart music guy, Ralph Chapman, when he said, I probably mentioned this before, but he said one of the greatest things told him by a music teacher one day is, when you listen to an album, go through it 5 times, listen for all the vocals. That's all you're listening for. Listen for all the bass, listen for all the guitars, the keyboards, the drums, listen just for the production the next time. And that's the way to really, figure out cool things to pull out of your music, right? And this is an album you could just listen for the bass alone. Just
Yeah,
like
I didn't mention Dave at all in my entire little discussion of it because, quite frankly, he's not doing anything remarkable on the album. But the rest of the guys, the other three,
yeah.
knocking it out of the park for me. So that's why I love it. Yeah,
Yeah, same thing. And it's just he's built the perfect Frankenstein Van Halen. I just find it's like it's a kind of an obvious thing to do, but you can listen to it as an amazing musical clinic. Okay, so my next one is 5150. So we're up to number 4. This is produced by Don Landy. It's not produced by Van Halen. It's not produced by Mick Jones. It's just a really interesting brown sound album. I think Don should get the credit for this album sounding radical. It's you could say it's Van Halen in the hair metal years, but they're breaking so many hair metal rules on this, in the production, in the casualness. I'm not crazy about, I'm just scanning the lyrics here again. Sammy really phones in these lyrics all over the place. They're just him shooting his mouth off kind of thing.
Yeah, they're generic as all hell. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And there are some things I really cannot stand on this, especially Best of Both Worlds. That song's just been an enemy to me. Love Walks In as well. But I think that some of the goofball things on here are really cool. 5150, Inside, and Summer Nights. Those are of a set with for me, and a little bit good enough, but it's also that thing I talk about, underwritten. There's some really underwritten material on here, right? But I think Why Can't This Be Love? Absolutely sophisticated, amazing ballad, up-tempo ballad, mind you. Get Up definitely suffers from that thing where they're just playing fast and frantic and it doesn't sound heavy. But the thing I love about it the most are those deep tracks. 5150, Inside, and Summer Nights, I guess, would be the suite on here. And then the masterpiece, Why Can't This Be Love? And then the other masterpiece, the production. I just think this is such a bright, trebly version of the Brown sound, but it's very extreme. And Alex's drums sound amazing on here.
Yeah, they do.
And even though a lot of people complain about it and call it 80s production, nobody was producing like this. And nobody was kind of making songs like this either that are just frankly kind of phoned in. But it's all about the performance, right? It's all about just Eddie's personality kind of thing. So that's my number 4. Hang on. 4.
We didn't even talk about the keyboards on that album. Very tastefully done, I think. And a lot of people argue there was too much of them, but I think they work out really well on the album. I think he did a nice job of integrating into the sound.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Okay. And my number 3 is Women and Children First. The most radical Van Halen album, I think, the most ragged and crazy, with things like, literally Loss of Control. I mean, that's literally them telling you this is crazy. Same with Tora Tora, just insane, right? A lot of this is insane. Everybody Wants Some is underwritten, but jammy, and, all the jungle stuff in there, which reminds me of when New York Dolls did that. But there's a couple of, a couple, or would I say one? I would say one. This has one very conservative, well put together, ambitious song, and that's Take Your Whiskey Home. And it's two. And The Cradle Will Rock, same thing. These are the ones that seems like they poured all their work and effort into, and they're the most conservatively recorded and played. They're sober. They sound sober, and they're both absolute masterpieces. They're just great Van Halen songs. And then Fools is crazy on here. Romeo Delight is nuts as well, but I think that's a really cool, fast one. So yeah, really interesting Van Halen album. Boy, I feel like moving it up the list now.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good. A lot of let's see, Everybody Wants Some, 2 exclamation marks, Tora Tora, exclamation mark, and The Cradle Will Rock, ellipses after, which makes no sense at all. Could This Be Magic? Nicely they put a question mark on that. But yeah, a very weird, crazy, ragged, nutty Van Halen album. You gotta love it just for that alone, because it is a very brutal sounding album.
Yeah, for sure. All right, my number 4 is HSAS Through the Fire.
Wow. Hi.
Yeah. Yep. I love this album. I was a huge fan back in the day. I still love it a lot. I'm trying to remember what prompted me to even buy this back then, because there was no promotion on it. Sammy was not a huge artist at the time, but he was a known name. I guess maybe the Neil Schon factor is probably what made me get this because I was a big Journey fan back then. You know, Kenny Aronson, of course, and Michael Shreve. I always liked Santana. So, but I remember like bringing this album home and thinking, holy moly, because this is heavy stuff on here. And thinking that this was going to be the next big supergroup, and then they never did anything after this. This kind of like sank like a wet turd, right? But man, Top of the Rock is so good. I love Missing You. Animation, Valley of the Kings, like you mentioned, is their big kind of Zeppelin-y epic. I Like Giza. You take Whiter Shade of Pale off of this. It's well done, but I don't need to hear it. But Hot and Dirty is a good kind of bluesy heavy rocker. He Will Understand in My Hometown. Just absolutely cranks. And I think Neil Schon is like on fire on this album because I think that's what really appealed to me on this because I always loved Neil's playing in Journey, but I always wanted to hear him doing heavier stuff. He is just molten on this album, just exploding. And I remember seeing the MTV concert and thinking, holy cow, are they going to do another record? And then you never heard another thing from them. And I'm shocked, Martin, after all these years that we never had Sammy and Neil doing something together again because I think they work so well together on here.
And yeah, there was that one time when what were they calling it? Was it Soul Circus or Planet Us where they almost got together and Sammy was supposed to be in the band, then he dropped out of the band or
It was
something?
probably
Something
Soul
like that.
Circus, yeah.
One of those things up in that area. You know, the funny thing, you mentioning this, I swear to God, I would say 13 to 16% of the fact that they were not successful is they didn't come up with a damn band name, right? They had either a super long one or a short one, and they're both dumb. And then the other thing is, why didn't they just go the extra step? I'm sure it's doctored to hell, right? So why didn't they just make it a studio album, right?
Yeah.
And it would have been taken more seriously, right? Because
So.
you just nobody is taking seriously a live album, right? It's
Yeah.
just weird. It's causing all this cognitive dissonance, right? And yeah, it's just like, come up with a band name, guys, you know, something catchy that people can say, right? Nobody wants to type this because nobody knows how to spell Shreve or Aronson, right? So or Sean for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then you know that you release a cover of Whiter Shade of Pale as the single, but meanwhile, that's not anything like the rest of the album. I mean, we've seen that happen to a million bands over time, but I mean, I could easily think of three other songs on here that would be a better choice of singles than that. But you know, they're going with the known song, and yeah, I get it, but whatever. But yeah, I love it. Love it. Just wish they did other things besides that. Man, my top three. I mean, you know, obviously we have the same top three. It's hard. I could make a case for any of these being number one. I'm gonna go with 1984 as my number three. Love it. Just great. The last one with Dave for a long, long time, but just some absolute classic. And I'll say I probably like the deep tracks more on this album than the hits. You know, Jump, Panama. Yeah, I was never a big Panama fan. Jump is a good song. Hot for Teacher, I like. I think it's really good. But man, for me, this is all about Top Jimmy, Drop Dead Legs. I'll Wait is terrific. I think I'll Wait is like such an underrated gem on this album. Girl Gone Bad and House of Pain, just slamming stuff. And I like the production on here. Great performance and from everyone. And yeah, just a dynamite album with a really cool album cover too. That's my number three. Could be higher, but I
Wow.
think
Yeah, I got to hear that's really interesting. You said it because Panama is my least favorite song on that album. What do you not like about Panama?
I don't know. I just never really dug it. To me, it just sounds kind of generic to me. It just kind of hastily thrown together. But I know people dig it.
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't like the chorus.
Yeah.
It never really clicked with me. Like I would much rather sit through Hot for Teacher. I always kind of, you know, those are the two big rocker hits on this album. And to me, I think Hot for Teacher is way more interesting. It has a much better guitar lick. I don't even, you know, even Panama, the riff is like, whatever. I don't know.
That's right.
Panama
Yeah,
just seems
exactly.
ordinary.
Yeah, it's the way I'd put it too. So, and maybe I will put it that way shortly. Okay, so my number two, I'm going with Fair Warning, the famously considered the Eddie Van Halen album, the one he put the most effort into, the most work. It's pretty I would say it's very conservatively and soberly produced and performed. I think they locked things down a little more on this after the wildness of Women and Children First. More punctuation all over the place. But just like Women and Children First, it has two absolute masterpieces that always come up in the top Van Halen songs of all time. That would be Mean Street and Unchained. And you know, it's got some things that are casual and annoying on it as well. You know, things like So This Is Love, Push Comes to Shove. Hear About It Later is a little bit casual. Sunday in the Afternoon in the Park is one of those instrumental interludes. One Foot Out the Door is them being really interestingly creative. And this is almost like a speed metal song that's missing, you know, standard heavy metal guitar. Reminds you of Romeo Delight a little bit, or reminded me as a kid that way. Dirty Movies is in quote marks, um, is um, is actually kind of like a good deep track that you could tell they put a lot of work into. It's complicated, it's pretty cool, it's heavy. And Sinner Swing is a little bit of your Hang 'em High, right? I always put those two songs together. Again, finding some of their super fast ones not particularly great, but it's pretty darn cool. But yeah, Mean Street and Dirty and sorry, Unchained are the absolute Van Halen classics from that album. And then number one, I'm going with 1984. I'm surprised as anybody to have this as my top Van Halen, because I'm always going back and forth between Fair Warning and Women and Children First as well. Sometimes the debut, sometimes even two. But what I love about this record is I actually like every song on it. I'm not a massive Panama fan. I think it's better than Best of Both Worlds, but I think it's the precursor to Best of Both Worlds. Hot for Teacher is the other one I like the least, but I still think it's pretty cool. But it is casual and jammy. But the rest of it, I think, is pretty darn masterful. Top Jimmy's really cool. Drop Dead Legs is insanely fun. Just such a great riff on that, and then that cool jam riff that he comes up with for the outro is amazing too. Jump is beautifully put together. But yeah, my favorite song, one of my top favorite Van Halen songs, is Girl Gone Bad, and I really like I'll Wait as well. And House of Pain is really cool. So and that only leaves 1984, which is an intro. So yeah, I love that it's all originals. I really like that there's none of those complete throwaway goofing around cabaret stripper pole hungover songs, jammy songs on it, like there are on pretty much every Van Halen album. So and this doesn't have that, so it's kind of all business, even though it's short. So that is my number one. And just to reiterate here, because it's in my notes, this album went diamond. Fair Warning went double platinum. Women and Children First went triple platinum. 5150 went 6 times platinum. Diver Down went 4 times platinum. You know, Diver Down doing that well basically broke up the band, right? Because it's like, is Dave right? Is Eddie right? You know, who gets there? Well, Dave's kind of right, because look how this reversed our fortunes and sold so well, right?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Eddie rejected the idea. So there you go, Fair Warning and 1984.
I wonder how many millions of albums this band has sold worldwide throughout their career. I mean, it's a pretty staggering number.
Yeah,
Got
with 2 diamond albums, right? But people say about Van Halen that they're not egregiously this way, but they are very much their success is bigger in America. They don't have these amazing pockets all over the world kind of thing. They're definitely in an American situation.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and North American sensation for the most part. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. Still, but
Yeah.
huge here, absolutely huge here.
Yeah.
All right, my number two, I'm going to go with Women and Children First. Yeah, this is a wacky, crazy album, but I think that's why we love it so much. There's just so many great songs on here. And The Cradle Will Rock is genius. I love Everybody Wants Some. Fools is so like heavy and just warped and great. Romeo Delight is great. Tora Tora, Lost Control, Lost Control, Lost Control. I mean, just it's crazy stuff. And you know, some of these songs you wish were longer, right? Some maybe just
Some you wish were shorter too.
yeah, a couple of them, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Take Your Whiskey Home. There is this album always holds a very special place in my heart, because I remember a good buddy of mine when we were in college. This was like the drinking album always, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So he and I used to always be like, 1 o'clock in the morning at the end of a weird bender at a party or something like that. We would sit there and we would sing Take Your Whiskey Home and Could This Be Magic together, like for years. So like we even joke about it now every time we see each other. But yeah, just great stuff. And it's simple rhyme. Great album. Could be my number one in this group, but I got to go with this. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. There are a couple songs on here that are like absolute drop dead classics. Mean Street and Unchained. And I would say this album is a little front loaded. I think the back end doesn't quite hit as the front, but man, Mean Street, Dirty Movies. I love Center Swing. Hear About It Later is fun. Unchained is great. Push Comes to Shove. So this is love. Good stomping, fun track, right? Saturday Afternoon in the Park and One Foot Out the Door, both really, really cool. Wish they were longer. Yeah, really short album. All these albums are really short, but man, they pack so many classics into these. So yeah, this is like almost like number one here by default, even though I think 1984 and Women and Children First maybe start to finish are a little stronger. But this is just has some heavy hitters you just can't deny. And I really like the production of this album. So yeah, that's my number one.
Back to our peaks and valleys episode, right? It's
100%.
One because of peaks and valleys, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yep. So
cool. Nice.
Cool. All right, Martin, get everybody caught up on what's going on in Popoff world over there. What do you got happening with the podcast?
Well, no idea what the next episode of the podcast is going to be, but the last one of History in 5 Songs was on heavy metal duets. And book-wise, I still have about half a box left of Van Halen User Manual Unchained. This is a big wordy Van Halen book that I did, and then that has been followed up by very recently Van Halen at 50, which is, you did the nice review of it, just hardcover, full color throughout, and that's all at martinpopoff.com. The other podcast we have, John Gaffney and myself started one called Kicked in the Teeth, an AC/DC podcast, and of course we've got our Contrarians YouTube channel as well.
Cool. So for those of you who are Van Halen fans, don't forget we've got probably a good handful or more of Van Halen episodes from the past here on the channel in our great library of almost 5,000 videos, Martin.
Yeah, wow.
Hard to believe, right? Yeah, fuck. We're approaching 100,000 subscribers and 5,000 videos. We've already hit and past 50,000 views, or 50 million views, I should say, cut just about a week and a half ago or so. So yeah, so if you want to go see the Ranking the Album show of Van Halen, which I believe I did with Butch Jones, we also did a Van Halen top 10 songs and various other like Deep Cut Dive and various other Van Halen related episodes. Just go search Van Halen on the little magnifying glass here on the channel and go check out all the previous videos and get caught up on what you may have missed a bunch of years ago, because I think most of those were done at least 3-4 years ago or so. So yeah, check it out. What do we got coming up here on the channel? Ken Golden will be in a couple hours for the Professor's Picks. We've got Ranking the Albums on Sunday. I'll be ranking the first 4 Spirit albums. And tune in tomorrow. Jamie Laszlo and his review crew will be reviewing some brand new releases this week. It's a fun show. He's got Davey Gallagher on board, Scott Lade, and Karen LaPreziosa. So a really cool new crew talking about some cool new releases. And stay tuned for that tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So other than that, lots more coming up here on the channel. I've got a few other things. I should be getting to some of those newbie episodes, right? Those picks for newbies for, I believe we're going to try and work out. I've got on tap, I've got 10 death metal albums for a newbie, black metal albums, power metal, and jazz fusion. That's all coming up over the next week and a half. I'm also going to be doing those Fickle fan base episode. That's coming up this weekend as well, and all sorts of other stuff. So till then, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. See you next week here at the Funhouse alongside Martin Popoff. I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. For folks here in the States, enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Have a good one. And we'll see you Monday on the Hudson Valley Squares. Take care. Bye-bye.